Breaking news. Hollywood's so-called dream romance just morphed into its darkest soap opera. Nicole Kidman has finally dropped her silence, and what she confessed has left the entire industry trembling. For 19 years, everyone bought the fairy tale, the red carpet grins, the award show kisses, the perfect couple headlines. But behind those dazzling flashes hid a reality so twisted, even their closest friends were too scared to whisper. Not anymore. Nicole has stepped out swinging, and her first target is Keith Urban. Insiders insist this isn't your average celebrity breakup. It's a full-blown Hollywood hurricane. Files, messages, names, a secret circle. Nicole allegedly uncovered things never meant to surface. Sources claim Keith's breakdown wasn't just emotional, it was explosive. 3 days after the divorce filing, he stormed on stage, ripped off his wedding ring, hurled it into the crowd, and shouted into the mic, "She was never supposed to talk." The audience froze. The industry lost its mind. #KeithExposed erupted online within 2 hours. This isn't romance anymore, it's a scandal peeling off Hollywood's shiny plastic face. Behind Nicole Kidman's calm silence lurk secrets, dark, dangerous secrets capable of toppling empires and roasting powerful names alive. And tonight, that silence has shattered. Hollywood's so-called perfect love story has officially gone up in flames. The same world that once worshipped them as the golden duo now stares in stunned disbelief. Nicole has finally broken her silence, and what spilled out wasn't a gentle confession. It was a cinematic explosion dead center in Hollywood's heart. The fairy tale is dead. What's left is a full-blown scandal, and Keith Urban is right at the fiery core. For years, the cameras devoured their smiles, and the media sold their love as something immortal. But now, every flashbulb, every red carpet grin, every rehearsed laugh hides a storm that's finally erupted. Nicole's whisper days are over. She's done guarding an illusion that never existed. The woman who once stood quietly beside her superstar husband is now the one ripping the curtain down herself. Insiders claim it didn't start with the divorce, it started long before the cracks showed. Keith Urban's demons weren't just addiction. They were chained to a world so sinister, even their closest allies were warned to keep their mouths shut. Speak. A world dripping with silent deals, dangerous parties, and powerful players pulling strings far beyond the music scene. Nicole Kidman tried for years to keep the cracks sealed, to hold her family together, but truth, as always, has a nasty habit of clawing its way out. And one night, inside their quiet Nashville mansion, everything changed. Nicole stumbled upon a small black USB drive tucked inside Keith Urban's guitar case. It looked harmless until she opened it. Inside was digital poison strong enough to melt reputations. The files weren't random chatter. They were recordings, screenshots, encrypted notes, each one tying Keith to a hidden circle that didn't just manage his career. It owned his silence. Among the messages were texts from strangers, instructing Keith how to keep Nicole in the dark. One chilling line echoed again and again: "Keep her quiet. If she talks, we end everything." Nicole sat there in the dim light, trembling as the truth unfolded in her hands. The man she'd built her life around was living a script written by someone else. That night, she didn't sleep. She wandered the house like a ghost, staring at wedding photos, glossy magazine covers, and those gleaming awards that suddenly felt like props in a lie. Couple. And for the first time in 19 years, Nicole Kidman realized she wasn't married to a man, she was married to a mask. The same man who once swore forever was now tangled in secrets big enough to vaporize reputations if they ever slipped out. And she wasn't wrong. Those secrets were heavy enough to make Hollywood's power players lose sleep. The panic began the second Nicole filed for divorce. No press conference, no pity plea, just one icy line that hit like a gunshot. Truth can only stay buried for so long. Instantly, the industry froze. The glossy headlines vanished overnight. Behind the scenes, phones lit up like emergency alarms. Lawyers, agents, execs, everyone with something to hide. But it wasn't Nicole who broke first. It was Keith Urban. 3 days after the filing, the world witnessed a side of Keith no one had ever seen. A live show in Pennsylvania turned into a meltdown in real time. The lights blazed, the crowd roared, but Keith didn't sing. He stood trembling, ripped off his wedding ring, hurled it into the sea of fans, and screamed into the mic, "She was never supposed to say anything." The audience froze. The internet didn't. Within minutes, cameras captured everything, and by the time the concert ended, #KeithExposed was the #1 global trend. The whole world was suddenly staring at what was never meant to be seen. That wasn't a concert, it was a collapse in real time. A man watching his perfect image crumble before millions. Nicole Kidman didn't lash out or chase headlines. She didn't need to. The next morning, she appeared with her daughter's no ring, no tears, no interviews, just silence. And that silence screamed louder than any statement ever could. It wasn't weakness. It was a message. She had proof and everyone in Hollywood knew it. Behind the velvet curtains, panic spread like wildfire. The word USB was already buzzing through press rooms. Whispers said the drive didn't just hold Keith's private messages, it contained names, dates, payments, and recordings from hotel rooms and after parties that were never supposed to exist. Suddenly, this wasn't a messy celebrity split, it was a ticking bomb. Then came the breaking point. A 27-second audio leak hit the internet, and the illusion officially shattered. In the clip, Keith Urban's voice trembled. She found it. She knows everything. I can't stop this anymore. Within minutes, the clip went viral. Reporters, fans, and gossip networks all dove in, connecting dots faster than Keith could disappear. It wasn't private anymore. It was public destruction. Cultural explosion. Nicole Kidman knew exactly what she was doing. 19 years of silence had been her weapon, and when she finally made her move, she didn't have to scream. One quiet step from her hit harder than anything Keith Urban could ever shout into a mic. She was done playing the shadow behind the superstar. Now, she's the one holding the map and the matches. This was never how the story was supposed to go. The world crowned them the power couple that survived it all. Rehab, distance, fame. But love, as it turns out, isn't always louder than the truth. Behind every dazzling grin was a crack. Behind every camera-perfect kiss, a lie waiting to detonate. And now, it finally has. The divorce wasn't the finale, it was the prologue to Hollywood's nightmare. Nicole walks into the storm with silence on her lips and fire in her grip, while Keith watches his empire crumble in slow motion. Because sometimes the deadliest scandal isn't betrayal, it's the truth you thought would stay buried. The moment Keith Urban hurled that ring into the crowd, the fairy tale died. That wasn't just a concert. It was a confession, a man watching his polished world disintegrate live on stage. The crowd didn't clap. They didn't cheer. They just froze. Seconds. The entire arena turned into a graveyard of shock. You could have heard a pin drop. That's when the whispers started, and the internet did what it does best: ignite. Within an hour, the world was watching. Within a day, it was judging. What began as a private divorce had just exploded into a public meltdown. Nicole Kidman didn't need to speak, Keith Urban did it for her. His panic, his voice cracking, that single scream, it all confirmed what everyone feared. The secret was real. Something massive, something dark, something strong enough to break a man who once looked unbreakable. Behind the scenes, Hollywood's most expensive PR machines went into full panic mode. Journalists were threatened. Videos mysteriously vanished from social media, and hush calls flew across time zones. But the damage was done. That 27-second audio clip had already multiplied, mirrored, and embedded itself in every corner of the internet. The web smelled blood, and once the perfect couple gets exposed, no PR army can stop the storm. Nicole had lived in that illusion for years, keeping quiet through Keith's relapses, his disappearances, those secretive parties that turned darker with every encore. She stayed silent until silence wasn't enough anymore, because she truly believed that love could heal what fame had shattered. But not anymore. Nicole Kidman wasn't the woman patching cracks together, she was the woman holding the evidence. Insiders close to her say that USB wasn't a drive. It was a vault. A digital vault packed with hidden conversations, encrypted messages, and voice notes linking Keith Urban to a secret network he'd been tangled in for years. Inside were names: producers, managers, executives, the same powerful figures who created stars by day and buried scandals by night. For years, they'd pulled strings behind closed doors, deciding what the public saw and what stayed locked away. Keith wasn't just fighting his demons. He was knee-deep in something far more dangerous. When Nicole uncovered what lived on that drive, she didn't sprint to the press or play the victim. She waited. She watched him unravel. And the night he broke down on stage, the world finally understood why. This wasn't heartbreak, it was warfare. By sunrise, Media outlets from Los Angeles to London were splashing headlines that went way beyond divorce. Words like scandal, cover-up, and underground circle dominated every screen. Anonymous insiders began leaking fragments of truth, and suddenly, the golden couple's split had turned into Hollywood's darkest storm. Someone whispered about secret parties. Another hinted at leaked security footage. Suddenly, Keith Urban wasn't being praised as a country music legend, he was being whispered about like a man strapped to a ticking bomb. 3 days later, Nicole Kidman finally appeared. No interviews. No statements. Just a quiet storm. She stepped out in an oversized coat, sunglasses masking swollen eyes, clutching her daughter's hands. The air around her crackled with tension, like thunder waiting to strike. Her silence wasn't grief anymore, it was strategy. And Hollywood felt it. One wrong word, one wrong headline, and she could bring the entire empire crashing down. Meanwhile, Keith vanished. No paparazzi sightings, no tweets, nothing. His team released one hollow line: Keith is taking time to focus on personal matters. But the world had already moved on to his downfall. His concert breakdown looped on every screen. Journalists dug into his past like miners hitting gold, while tabloids resurfaced every rumor, every shadowed photo, every whisper from nights no one dared discuss. Then came the real explosion. An anonymous insider claimed to have seen the contents of the USB. They described recordings of frantic phone calls, Keith's trembling voice, and others allegedly powerful men plotting in the dark. In one bone-chilling clip, a voice warned, "She'll ruin us all if she opens her mouth." People began whispering the question everyone was too scared to ask out loud. How deep does this go? How many names were tangled in it? How many careers had been built on keeping women like Nicole Kidman silent? This was no longer a messy marriage story, it was a system cracking open. Social media erupted into a war zone. Hashtags like #Justice for Nicole, #Keith Exposed, and #Hollywood Secrets flooded timelines. The same fans who once swooned over red carpet kisses were now demanding receipts. Some defended Keith Urban, but most didn't. The pressure had officially gone public. No more whispers, no more PR control. And then, like gasoline on the fire, a second leak dropped that night. A hidden security camera clip, grainy, shaky, but horrifyingly real. It showed Keith at a private party, surrounded by shadowy figures with blurred faces, but very recognizable voices. The laughter wasn't friendly. The talk wasn't innocent. And when someone casually mentioned Nicole's name, Keith's reaction said it all: pure panic. Fear in his eyes, dread in his silence. Nicole's team didn't issue a statement. They didn't have to. Her silence was doing all the talking, and Hollywood was finally listening. The world was already connecting the dots. Every leaked video, every whispered source, every grainy clip built a story darker than any headline dared to print. This wasn't a scandal about love gone wrong, it was a reckoning. A storm ripping straight through Hollywood's velvet curtains and glittering illusions. And right in the eye of it stood Nicole Kidman, unshaken. Through all the chaos, her focus never wavered from her daughters. Friends say she told them one chilling line: "I'm done protecting monsters." When that line leaked, it became a rallying cry. The internet turned her silence into a sword, her heartbreak into a movement. Nicole had become what this secret circle feared most: fearless. Meanwhile, Keith Urban's world was collapsing in real time. Sponsors vanished, tours were quietly postponed, and magazine covers that once worshipped him suddenly erased his face. The same insiders who once toasted him in private were now ghosting him in public. Nobody wanted to sink with the ship, but this wasn't just the fall of a man, it was the unmasking of an empire. No one knows how far Nicole plans to go, but one thing's certain: this is only the opening act. And if the whispers are true, that next file on the USB doesn't just threaten Keith Urban, it could obliterate names Hollywood swore would never be touched. What began as a love story has mutated into a nightmare. One the industry can't sweep away this time. The spotlight no longer belongs to Keith. It's Nicole's stage now, and she's not here to perform. She's here to burn the script. Performing. She's dismantling everything. The world thought it had already seen the full circus: Keith Urban's public breakdown, the viral leaks, the whispers of a secret circle, but that was just the trailer. The real show was still coming. The silence Nicole Kidman carried like a blade wasn't silence anymore. It was thunder waiting to strike. And when it did, it didn't just shake Keith's world, it burned through Hollywood like an uncontrollable wildfire. At exactly 7:40 p.m. on a quiet Sunday night, the internet detonated. A mysterious cloud server, once traded privately in shadowy circles, suddenly went public. Within minutes, that dreaded word USB turned from rumor to reality. Thousands of files, voice notes, screenshots, audio clips. Nicole never said she'd release them, but someone did. And in an instant, the illusion shattered. The leaks were brutal. No gossip, no speculation, just cold, undeniable evidence. Recordings of Keith Urban's voice, desperate and cracking, speaking to people whose names were blurred out but whose identities the industry could easily decode. In one clip, Keith's voice trembled. "I can't keep her quiet forever. She's not like the others." Another message exposed the machinery behind the mask: secret payouts, planted headlines, buried scandals, and whispered threats. Overnight, the stars who once strutted the red carpet went dark, deleting accounts, vanishing into digital silence. Instagram accounts disappeared overnight. PR teams scrambled to release statements that said absolutely nothing except we're terrified. Hollywood, the factory of fairy tales, finally saw its curtain ripped to shreds. Nicole Kidman didn't rush to interviews or late-night confessions. She didn't have to. The world was doing her talking for her. Within hours, the hashtag Nicole was right hit 20 million tweets. Influencers, journalists, even ex-industry insiders started connecting the dots. Naming names, some whispered, some shouted, but every trail led to one undeniable truth. This wasn't just about Keith Urban's marriage. This was about the rot Hollywood had buried under its glitter. Keith, meanwhile, had vanished like a ghost. His team claimed he was seeking treatment and privacy, but sources told a far darker story. According to one insider, Keith had locked himself inside a private Tennessee estate, ignoring calls, refusing visitors. He knew the mask was gone. The world had finally seen the man behind the songs, the smile, the charm, and the darkness no PR stunt could polish away. Then came the footage. A shaky, grainy video hit the web, and headlines detonated. It showed a secret meeting in a dimly lit house. Keith Urban, slumped in a corner, surrounded by men whose faces stayed hidden. One deep voice growled, "If she opens that box, it's over for all of us." Another whispered, "What about the girls?" Then silence. A silence so thick it burned through every screen that played it. The illusion was dead. This wasn't a messy celebrity breakup. It was dangerous. It was personal. It was real. And through it all, Nicole Kidman stayed calm, collected, deliberate, unstoppable. Every public step she took was a message in itself. She wasn't scared anymore. That terrified the same power players who once laughed. Certain Nicole Kidman would stay silent forever. But the silence they mocked had turned lethal. Insiders close to Nicole dropped a chilling truth. What leaked wasn't even close to the full file. The world had seen a sliver, just the tip of a digital iceberg. The rest? Recordings, documents, and confessions potent enough to erase entire careers. Nicole held them like a ticking bomb, calm and patient. She didn't have to raise her voice. Her existence alone was the threat. Within a week, Keith Urban's name vanished from radio rotations. Tours quietly postponed. Brand deals evaporated overnight. But the shockwaves didn't stop with him. Suddenly, names far outside the music world began to surface in the leaks: a film executive, a media tycoon, even a politician. The once untouchable network that operated in the dark was being dragged into the light, all because one woman refused to be silenced. The knockout blow came at a live-streamed charity gala. A fearless journalist grabbed the mic and asked, "Nicole, do you believe Keith was the only one involved?" The room froze. Nicole didn't blink, didn't hesitate. Her answer sliced through the air like glass. "You have no idea how deep it goes." Within 10 minutes, that one line set the internet on fire. Behind closed doors, panic erupted. The same men who once conspired to bury the truth were now turning on each other, scrambling not to protect the system, but to survive it. Lawyers began circling like vultures over a fresh carcass. Deals crumbled. Friendships imploded. The secret circle Nicole Kidman had stumbled into was never built to survive daylight, and daylight had finally broken through. Millions of fans watched in disbelief as their once golden couple became ground zero for one of Hollywood's darkest, most contagious scandals. What started as a love story ended up as a mirror reflecting everything the industry never wanted the world to see. The fairy tale wasn't shattered, it was incinerated. Weeks later, Keith Urban finally resurfaced, not on stage or on screen, but in a blurry paparazzi snapshot. A shell of the man he'd been, sunken eyes, blank stare, no music, no spotlight, no mask. The golden boy was gone. What remained was the headline, the cautionary tale. Nicole Kidman, meanwhile, refused to play the villain the tabloids tried to script. She became something else entirely, a symbol. A woman who'd spent years clinging to love, to family, to healing, and when everything turned to ash, she didn't hide behind PR. She chose truth, and truth became her vengeance. Then came the final ripple from inside Hollywood itself. Women began stepping forward, not just about Keith but about the machine that had silenced them all. Stories buried for decades finally clawed their way out. Reporters dubbed it the Nicole effect. One woman's storm had cracked the sky wide open. And somewhere deep inside his own wreckage, Keith Urban knew it too. He wasn't just exposed. He was erased. This was never just a divorce. It was never just heartbreak. It was the collapse of an image, the downfall of an empire, and the rise of Hollywood's worst nightmare, truth. And once truth is spoken, it doesn't vanish. Those files, those recordings, that single USB drive didn't just expose secrets, they rewrote history. A woman's silence became her sharpest weapon. A husband's panic became his confession. And the so-called perfect couple transformed into the ghost story Hollywood will never stop whispering about. They can erase headlines, bury clips, scrub timelines, but it's too late. The internet saw it. The fans heard it. The world knows. Nicole Kidman didn't choose revenge. She chose survival. She chose her daughters. She chose to stand in the fire rather than drown in a lie. And Keith Urban, he became the cautionary tale every PR team in Hollywood warns its stars about. So next time someone says love conquers all, remember this story. Because sometimes, love doesn't save you. Sometimes truth does. And truth doesn't blink. It burns forever.